here I am in the studio. Yeah, I've got my Nescafe Azira Nitro Latte. Boom. Oh, that's about, I think I got it cheap. It's supposed to explode inside, but I'm thinking. Quiet. Yeah. So, was the wife interrupting? I was in the throes of it. Anyway, what's this about today? Well, what it's about is the Presonus Studio Live 32, the Studio Live 32 rack, which you can see up there, hopefully. What else have I got? Oh, I've got them switches you can see in between in there, but we're going to go in there, don't we? And Studio One, of course. And yeah, I've got another thing called an LP32 from Motu, or Motu, whatever they call themselves. Mark of the Unicorn, which I'll be showing and talking about on a separate video, really. I had to buy that to get the O2R 96 out of here so that I could actually look at the backups that I own. How bad's that? Yeah, sounds like a plan. Well, it's not a plan if you haven't got one, and Studio Live doesn't hack it, but we'll come to that. So as you can see, the idea was to have the main room. Yeah, this is a recording room in here, that's where all the amps are doing all that stuff. Going into really what was a stage box. I wanted it to be a stage box, because down there's a big hole where all the cables used to be, and I wanted to get rid of all that. You know how it goes in studios. So I bought this 32R, and I'll tell you why I bought the 32R as opposed to the stage boxes. I think it's an N8 or something, an N16, don't worry what the names are, you'll know what I mean. Well, when I looked at them for 700 quid, that's about $900, I thought that's expensive. And I looked at that, and I could find one of those, I won't say where, but I found it for about 900 and odd quid. Just a few £100 difference. And what you've got with that is a full-blown mixer, 32 channel mixer. And I thought for the 200 and odd pounds difference it would be very short-sighted just to save the 200 quid for what's a stage box. Bearing in mind this is an installation, it's a studio, I'm not going out gigging. So that to me made more sense. Well, it did at the time, but oh my god, we'll get to that. So it's installed there, you've got a couple of cables that come out. We'll talk about them when we're in the other room and everything else that's in there. So let's go in there and get on with it, right? Well, here we are in the main, I'll call it a control room, it is what it is. It was built in 1995, this place, and it was built as a studio. You won't see lots of sticky things on walls and stuff like that, because, to tell you the truth, don't seem to make much difference to me. It might to you, so don't hold that against me, but from my own experience, the last guy that argued is up there. Anyway, back to this. The studio started out with, in 1995, with a Yamaha desk that I had converted. It was an analog desk, and it was so good so far, you know, and I got the tape player and all that stuff, the old-fashioned way of doing things. But along came the likes of things like Cubase and stuff like that, and I never really did get to grips with Cubase, but I'll come back to Cubase. In any case, I moved forward literally in about probably 2000, sometime around that era, and I moved into the digital format. I bought a Yamaha O2R, you know the desk, the old one, the original, and it was a nightmare. But once I got my head around it, I thought, well, great, you know, so I made this album. In about 2005 or 4 or 5 I was working on. It was released in 2006. Album called ENIAC. So you can actually go on the internet and have a listen to what I achieved at that time with the sort of mediocre gear that I had. But then I bought a Mackie SDR 24. There's one just up there off camera, and there's an original just in there at the top if you can see it. Yeah, I might put a picture on the screen just to show you that, just in case anybody who hasn't seen one. There must be a few of you, yeah. In any case, the Yamaha setup, the O2R and the Mackie SDR 24/96, is the proper name. It worked brilliantly, and it was connected with ADAT or ADAT. I didn't want all the cables, but I had all the main cables going out off the desk into the other room, into like a, you know, like a stage box type of thing that you could plug all the mics in for the drummers and all the different people. Yeah, sounds like an idea, and it was. I got a headphone amp in there, which again I'll show you a photograph of. You'll probably see it right at the top of the rack, and it's still in there to this day. There's good reason for that, and we'll come back to that later. In any case, by 2006 things had moved on a little bit, and in 2000, towards the end of 2006, I was working on another album with Alan Bruce, bass and vocal guy. He plays guitar as well, but I keep telling him not to. In any case, we decided to make this other album called Burner Street, and the idea was, it was all about Jack the Ripper, you know, heavy metal type of stuff. So we did that, and halfway through I had this brainwave. Yeah, it was bad. The brainwave was to go out and buy an O2R 96, because I'd seen one, quote, cheap. It wasn't cheap. In fact, the O2R 96, as it came with no interfaces and stuff like that, I think it was £13,000 at the time, about 2006, give or take. But the thing was, I saw one second hand, and what had happened is these two guys, these two young lads, had formed a company with a bank loan, oh my god, and 3 months later they did a running. So off they went, and I got this this brand new desk for 3,000 quid, or $4,500 as it was in them days. So bear in mind your £3,000 that I paid for it, and I had it until 3 months ago. Well, actually, it's in the house now. I'm going to be selling it on the likes of eBay or somewhere like that. One of the better ones, I might add. In any case, I had to make my mind up whether to change this desk halfway through an album, and that I did. Oh my god, you never had so much trouble in my life. Now these things matter. You can say to me, oh, this is not a review about this, but you trust me, it is. Yeah, so what happens was we spent 3.5 months in between. We got about half of the tracks done, and then we introduced the new desk. And when I got the new desk, the O2R 96, it was like lifting a veil off the audio. I'm not saying the original album was bad, because if you go and listen to it, it isn't bad. It's a great sound. But the O2R 96 definitely improved things beyond anything reasonable. It was a wild improvement. All of a sudden, Alan Bruce had a voice. Okay, Al. Now, of course, in the meantime, I still had the likes of Wavelab, which I did use quite extensively over those years from 2006 onwards. And I still have it, but since about 2016, I haven't really used Wavelab. Cubase, on the other hand, I tried, and in the end, I had upgrade after upgrade after upgrade, thinking that, oh well, maybe they'll fix everything. Some guys will argue with me, Cubase is awesome, but I have to say that I must have spent thousands on upgrades and all the rest of it, and I never really used it. It was awful. That's just me. But you know, I've had a lot of experience. I've been playing since 1971, and I've been in studio after studio and done lots of different things, and no, Cubase wasn't for me. And all the people I saw with it were either fiddling around all the time, or they dumped it, one or the other. But don't hold it against Cubase. Lots of guys will love it. It's a bit like Pro Tools. You know, it's been through a phase, and it cost a fortune in the old days, and it still costs a fortune these days. I'd never go there. I don't need that. And I don't know many people that do, but people seem to buy it. Actually, some call them Pro Fools, but that's not me. I just wouldn't buy it. That's the point. That brings me further forward to 3.5 months ago. Yeah, nicely, to Presonus. Now listen, updating any studio that's been working for years is a really, really difficult task. Don't let anybody tell you that, oh, it's nothing, just plug one in and plug one out and you'll be fine. No, you won't. if you're halfway through an album, it'll take you months on end to get back to where you were. Thankfully, I'd finished an album in 2006 with Alan, one called Gravity Waves, that's another plug. In any case, we completed that in the studio with the O2R96 and it was all good. And the SDR 2496 hard disk recorder, remember this. So, well, what happened? Why did I flip? Well, the reasoning to flip was all to do with computers, really, and software. It wasn't so much any one thing. It was an accumulation of a lot of things. I'd got the O2R96 and I'd got the hard disk recorder over there. But I couldn't really do much on screen and I couldn't back up the hard disk recorder. That was another pretty major problem, because when you've been recording for so long and using that thing for so long, you've got so many backups, it's painful. And you know, they're all multi-track backups. So the gear just wasn't up to it. And I went to a demonstration at a local guitar store called Music Store Pro, but they've moved now into a much smaller setup, more high street based rather than out of it. You know. I went to see, I think at the time it was Source Distribution, which I believe they're not selling Presonus now. For some reason there's been some argy-bargy. And Presonus, as far as the UK is concerned, are based in, I think they're based in Southern Ireland, could be Northern, but I think it's Southern. After watching Source's demo at the dealers, they gave you a free Studio Live. I forget which one it was a pretty basic one. So I looked at it, I put it up on here, and I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it and messed around with it. And I thought, you know, I could get on with this. It was wholly different than Cubase. Wholly different. Yeah, you could actually find things. So I went and I did the upgrade, you know, spent a bit of money. I think it was only about £100, $140 or something. And off it went. Great. I could actually use it. But now I've got another problem. Another problem is that while I've got the software on there, nothing that I had could communicate with it. Well, hardly. You could capture stereo and things like that. There was no real multi-track communication in any way. I was actually no better off. So about 4 months ago, maybe a bit longer than that, yeah, 4 months ago, I decided to buy one of these things. You can see that's a Studio Live 32 Series 3, and it's got its good points and it's got its bad points. And I was very concerned about it at the time. I tell you what concerned me the most. Two things. One, no interface slot. That's the first problem. I'm used to having lots of interface slots on the Yamaha gear, and I can put any interface I want in there that they make, and they make a lot of them. You know, Yamaha's a massive organisation. I guess Presonus is smaller. But they made the decision not to put this interface in there. And in its place they put a thing called AVB. Now AVB's been around a few years, but I was very concerned about that. And quite rightly so, because on the earlier desks of this genre, whatever they pronounce it, doesn't matter. Yeah, the AVB would be sort of, well, it sort of works. And then you had Motu, the other ones, making, you know, switches and things like that, which were or weren't compatible, or it's this and it. And the biggest problem for me, I found, was that every time I'd go back and ask anybody that either represented Presonus or was part of the Presonus mob, if you will, the problem I had was that, hey, I've got this piece of gear, can you just tell me if it works with AVB? I mean, it's your gear, isn't it? Yeah. No. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't. Blah, blah, blah. And to this day, that's still a problem, Presonus, if you watch this video. I think that's quite concerning. AVB is going through twists and turns by the organisations that are behind it. Motu's gone through it. Presonus on the new series, the Studio Live 3, has improved, they tell me, beyond all recognition. And it actually works. Well, it does but nearly. In my experience, I've had a couple of funnies on it, on the setup and things like that, which we're going to have a look at now. But I just wanted to get you more up to speed in why I did what I did. And I'm probably just like some of you guys out there, that you're used to this other gear and you think to yourself, well, this can't be right. What have I done? And at one stage, about a month ago, I can assure you, there's a window behind the camera over there. And fortunately it's got bars on it to stop people breaking in, you know. But had it not had bars, this stuff would have gone out of the window. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on a little bit and start looking at the gear, and then we'll have a bit of a summing up at the end as to what problems I found. Well, I'll probably cover that. And sum up at the end as to where I think it is, where it's going and all the rest of it. And you know, take this video as what it is, because it's a serious video in its own way, because I am a real user. I bought every single item, right? And if I've had trouble after using all that other gear for all them years, trust me, you'll have trouble too. Yeah, thankfully they've got support. I'll come back to that too. Here we go, let's take a look at what we've got. Okay, well, here's the PC. This was the first thing I bought was this Studio One. Now this is version 4 point something or other, but the version that I had wasn't. So I did the upgrades and all the rest of it, and then yeah, we went from there. You can see what it does as it fires up. It's all pretty nice. Anybody who hasn't seen this before, well, go and compare it with Cubase for a while and watch the differences. Oh my god. So I ended up with this one, which sort of drew me towards thinking about, well, there he is, look, the ugly guy really. But we go look here, you can see the desk straight off, and there's a few funnies on it. You can't actually record 44.1 at the moment. That's a bit of a shortcoming. And there's a load of stuff in here, and there is more than that, but some of it's turned off and things like that. But I wouldn't worry. I'll leave it where it is for now. A load of stuff you can do. I'm not here to go through all that. It's just life. And yeah, there it is. There's a track based on this desk. And yeah, all pretty simple. It's pretty loud and noisy, I guess. Yeah, sounds loud and noisy. Sounds loud and noisy. I can turn it up, but I don't think I will. Okay, so there's a track that came from the Mackie SDR 2496, and that's from the Burner Street album of 2006. Yeah, I think that one was. 2007. So, loads of stuff you can do in here. The thing that I like about this, you can get most of this stuff very, very easy. And if you're using their gear, it's pretty easy to follow the instructions and end up with stereo outs and, you know, vary the inputs to anything you want. For me, I don't really have to do that. If I go into a different setup, let's close this one away. One of the things I wanted to do was to, let me better turn that on, else it's going to complain. But one of the things I wanted to do was to get the data, remember, off all those hard disk backups. And I pondered this for a while because, you know, the Studio Live 32 hasn't got the I/O. There's no ADAT, for example. Really concerning. So you've got to spend more money. And the way I spent more money was on a Motu LP32. And there was a test I did just the other day, well, the 28th, it's the 30th now. So if we just open that, well, for me, there's one of the first problems that I have. The rate you set is 44.1. Well, it would be, because that's what it's recorded at and all the rest of it. That, you know, I wanted it back as it should be. But in any case, there it is. And this is the track that is the very same track. I better back it off a bit. The very same track that I pulled in. So there it is. The only difference is that this was pulled in with the ADAT connected to the SDR 2496 through the Motu and then into the Studio One, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, very nice. Let's close that away. Just wanted to show you that. Okay, well, I'm down here. Hi. Well, you'll notice just there that I've got one of those keyboards from Editor's Keys that's designed for Studio One. That's one of the things that helps me quite a lot with Studio One, I think. I could faff around up on the software, but I don't think I will. That's the way to do it, boys. Get one of them. Not cheap, by the way. They're about £100 or $130. Might be more where you come from, but that to me is a big improvement over just faffing around on the screen. But let's take a look at the desk itself. And this is not in any particular mode at the minute. It's just sort of sitting there, idling, if you will. It says door, but door's not on. So I've got audio coming in, and let's think about how we route everything to it and from it. Well, like most of these desks, it's a sort of digital patch, and the biggest problem with digital patching, trust me, is if you don't really quite get it. You won't, and you won't get it for a while. But if we go and take a look at all this patching, what you've got on the desk is an ability to come in from the analog at the back. Let's see if I can get something on that. From the analog at the back, over the network, from the USB, from this little live recording SDHC card, they say, or reset it. So you've got a load of things that you can do, and you can see how them are set up at the moment. So, well, hopefully you can. Doesn't really matter if you can't, because it's not a training video, remember that. Then you've got this thing. For each given channel, I'm on channel 1 at the moment. When I'm on channel 1, the screen will flip back to a main area that shows you things like the gate, the compressors, the limiters, the this, the that, the auxiliaries, the assignments for the outputs, all sorts of different little things. But it's very easy to go a long way from there. But what I really wanted to talk was about this fat channel. That's what they call it. This channel here, all these settings here are associated with the channel that you've chosen, which is quite nice because it gives you loads and loads of things. You've got input gate, compression, EQ, auxiliary sounds, user settings, and so on. And you've got various inputs like USB, analog, network. I can just flip that across to analog, literally like that. If you can see up there, whoops, if you can see up there, great, and if you can't, well, tough. But it does flip across to the other inputs, which is quite nice. I like the desk as well because when we fire up Studio One, which is just coming up now, there it is, and I open my little test, there's the test on screen. You can't see it, but don't worry. When I hit the door button, I actually get exactly what's in Studio One, which is really nice because I can hop around and control everything, which this desk didn't do, but it did just before I bought it. Well, a bit before I bought it. I think they come out with that in March or something, March 2018 or May, something like that. Doesn't really matter for me, but it mattered because it was already implemented, and that was the good point. The rest of the desk's pretty obvious what it does to me. It might not be to you, but you can have all these different modes. You'll see them. So we've got lots of different layers, and I'm just hopping through a few. You notice I don't particularly use them. Well, nothing wrong with that. I just don't use them. So for me, in this environment, it doesn't really matter. I haven't got a 50-piece band, and I haven't got half a church, so none of that matters. You have to remember that. The other thing I liked about this desk was you've actually got 32 faders. On the Yamaha, that was a 24 desk, not a 32 desk. And that had multiple layers, pretty similar to this really, but in a different place over there. And you could flip between the auxes and the rest of it, and So in many respects, it's a very sort of, I won't call it the same, it's a sort of similar result. Far harder to drive when you first get it. Well, I say that, the Yamaha O2R96 took me about 3.5 months to get to really grips with it. This one's been a bit quicker, but it's had its funnies. Yeah, so let's move on a little bit and talk about the other things we've got in here, and I'll then take a look at some problems after that. Now, before I went whole hog into buying the desk and all the rest of it, I bought this. This is a Studio 192. It's been out a couple of years, and it was like an interface. I think it's an 8 input at the back, 2 at the front and 6 at the back, something like that. I wasn't really that worried about any of that. My attraction to it was those ADATs on the back, this sort of 16, 2 8 ADATs, 8 in 8 out, 8 in 8 out, So you got 16 tracks, which I thought quite easily I could have pulled from this thing here, the SDR, into that, and out of that into the PC. Well, it wasn't so easy, and for me, I never did actually make it work. And the problems I had, I did go to tech support, and they said, oh yeah, it's the clock. It's all to do with the clock. You're getting clicks in your tracks as you're pulling them over. But the other limitation, as well as the clicks, was that I could only get 16 tracks, and I'd got lots of music that had got the SDR fully loaded with 24 tracks on it. So ultimately, that unit there, it sits there now, and it's pretty much redundant at the moment. I might add it back into the system, but I might not. Whether I'll use it is another thing, you see. So that was the first move into buying the hardware. You'll notice I'm using Mackie speakers, and that's simply because this studio's been around a long time, and I'm not buying speakers when I've already got them. Presonus makes speakers, so they'll tell you they're the best. I'll tell you, well, I've got some that work just the same, so I'm not buying them. So there. Okay, well, what you're now looking at is another Presonus product, and it all comes down to coming back to this this network, this audio network. The audio network, pretty important to make it work. AVB switch, those are. AVB. So on the bottom switch, what I've got is I've got my various devices going through the bottom one. And on the top switch, that was going to be for the EMX 16Ms, which I'll get to talk about a bit later, but I wouldn't worry too much about them in my situation, but I'll come back to them a bit later. So that's the reason I've got 2 of those, and the item on the top is a router that allows me to sort of manage various bits of gear, without actually faffing around. You can just take this thing around with you can set different mixes up and things like that. Well, it's all good. It's so for me. I'm either walking to next door or I'm here. I mean, it's not really like being on a stage. So you can remember this is an installation rather than, a touring band or something. Very different. You'll also notice on the bottom one, if you look at that button that says PoE, it's white, and if you look at the top one, it's blue. Well, the great thing about these particular switches, and this is why I bought these as opposed to Motu, the Motu ones I'd heard over the internet kicking around that, maybe there's problems between Presonus equipment and Motu equipment. Some people were saying they've got problems, but I think if you buy the Presonus ones, well, then it's going to be compatible, and that, for me, compatibility is everything. It's got to be able to do what I want it to do. But those 2 buttons, in any case, on the Motu switches, I don't believe that they've got power over Ethernet. And power over Ethernet is a very powerful tool, especially if you buy some of the Presonus gear like the EMX, which can be powered actually from the the network cable. But I have other gear as well, so could be useful. PoE is always useful. I've got 2 separate networks, by the way. I've got this one here and another one that's a bit lower down, which we'll just go and take a quick look at now. In actual fact, you're not really going to see anything except where the cables stick out of the back of the router. The switch that's just on there. It's a Netgear switch, and I use that as a control network. We'll come back to that later, but that's why that's there. And the other switches, which just looked at, well, those are a separate network again. That is, really, that's an audio network. So I treat those as separate. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, it works for me. So don't tell me that, hey Tony, you got it all wrong. It doesn't matter. It works for me. Now when you're looking at Presonus equipment, what you've got to understand is it's got 3 basic connectors for the I/O, other than, mics and things like that. These 3 connectors, one is the AVB network, the second one is what they call a control network. Well, they might call it something different. It's what I call a control network. And the third one's USB. So the USB connects to your PC, the control network connects through that switch that I just showed you, well, where the wires go, that's as near as you're going to get. That plugs into the PC, and the third network, the AVB network, well, it sort of plugs into the PC through the standard network, but I try and keep them separate because I don't really need the two actually talking in the way that you might think. Now then, I'm in another room. I'm in the main room for recording, and that unit up there, the Studio Live 32R, has, for me, that has been a problem. And if you look at it right now, I've actually got the Studio Live 32 desk turned on and connected. I'm looking at it through the switch. I can see the connections. I've got the Studio One software up and running with that interface, and I've got the Studio Live 32R there actually connected to both the audio and the control network, and I can see very clearly, and so can you if you actually look, you can see that the control network doesn't actually sync properly. Now if I go and get the control software that the likes of Presonus has, well, that's all well and good, and then that'll flip. You just carry on watching and I'll just go bring that up and you watch that. Ready? Go. Now then, as you saw, that actually syncs. But it won't sync unless you run the control software. So it's some other software for looking at the units, so you can set them up, so to speak. But the Studio Live 32R has this mode that allows you to set it up as a stage box. And when it's set up as a stage box, it says very clearly on the screen in Studio One's control software, it says very clearly that it is set up as a stage box. However, it doesn't sync unless you actually open it up and click it, which is really weird. What's even more weird is that even though it shows a non-sync light, it works perfect. Could be a problem in a big setup, unless you're faffing around all the time with a Studio Live 32R set up as a stage box that doesn't actually sync. That's a bit weird. So that's one of the problems that I still have. But let me tell you about a problem that I had when we were setting things up. And just heed this, because it is a little tip. It's not immediately obvious. Each device has, as I said, AVB, that's an audio network. It has a control network, and it has a USB. So what I did, I proceeded to look at all the documentation, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's there, and connect everything up, as it said in the documentation. The only thing it didn't tell you was that you don't connect all the USBs. Well, what happens when you do? Well, I can tell you. Studio One decides when you've got this and the rack going in on USB, it decides all by itself that the controlling device is the rack. Really weird, because what happens is when you get into the Studio One software, it all works. I can all control everything with the door and all the rest of it. I can do all that stuff. You just can't hear anything. And can you fathom it out? No, you can't fathom it out. I spent eons. And then I contacted Presonus, and we sort of worked through a load of different things. Tech support guy, really great guy. Johnny somebody or other. He knows who he is. Anyway, he was awesome. which is what you really need when you're trying to get this as you need it. And it turns out that one of these USBs shouldn't be put, well, you only need one from the desk, all the rest of them will work through the networks. Let's put it that way around, through the control networks. So that solved the problem. So very difficult to solve, very, very difficult to solve, especially when all the paperwork said, oh yeah, plug your USB in, plug them in, yeah, so you do. You didn't have you did have USBs on the Yamaha, but they were pretty useless, so you didn't really have any USB stuff to go at. Now listen, I've been in computing gear since, I hate to say it, 1979. So I've had a lot of practice with hardware and all that sort of stuff, but listen, plug them in, it said. Anyway, enough of that. My experiences are, at one stage, let's throw it out the window. My experiences today are completely different because I got proper support, and that's what matters. But I'll tell you this, don't bother going and ask your dealers for support, because most of them don't get it. They wouldn't ever be able to get it, by giving you a call. They aren't coming out to you. So that's all out. So Johnny in tech support, he's the man you want. Where am I today? Like I said, I've got a desk that works great. I understand the auxies now. I couldn't give a monkey's about all the layers and things, because I don't have people coming in. I just need me to do it. And yeah, that's all good. Studio One is all good. I like that as well. I can find a lot of things. I don't know everything about Studio One, but I'm now in a position where I can sort of learn Studio One, and some of the things that it can do are absolutely awesome. In fact, I think they're just far better than Cubase, or any of the others in fact. I've got a rack unit that is like a stage box, and it sort of behaves itself for the most part, which is also great. Now, if you noticed when we were in there, and when we were having a look at the rack, across the top there was a headphone amp. And what I've done is taken the masters out of that and pushed them across into the headphone amp so that guys can hear what they're playing to and that sort of thing. So let's talk about the ear mix. Here it is, just to prove I do own one. I own one, and that's the important statement. Well, this studio used to have the headphone thingy, the headphone amp, up to, I think, the 6 sets of headphones you can have, which is more than enough for anything we wanted to do. And it all worked fine off the Yamaha desk, you send the control out and balance a few things up. Well, you couldn't do the sort of things that the CMX 16M could do. So I bought one. And if you noticed earlier, there was a wire dangling down. Well, there's one that goes off into the other room where you can plug the ear mix in there. And it's all good. Well, is it? So what's it doing in my hand here? Well, a bit of an overkill for what I need. I've operated perfectly happy since 1995. Yeah, with a headphone amp. A couple of crappy sets of headphones. Well, there's a few sets. Headphones for the guys in there who are recording, or it might be me. And it works fine. Yeah. So why did I buy the EMX 16? Well, I had this brilliant idea of saying that, well, yeah, but it's a mixer. And it is a mixer, there's no doubt about it. You've got your headphones and you can choose number 8 and turn him down a bit in the mix. So you can get your mix, for want of a better thing. That's the idea. I think it is good, but it isn't good enough for me. It isn't what I want. What I really want is something where I can do this sort of stuff just as easily as if I was sitting at the desk. I maybe want to control the desk, and I'm not talking about poxy iPads and that sort of stuff. I'm talking about a unit that will allow me to control what I want to do in there. In fact, I can show you one. Oh, this is years old. There it is. It's a remote. Now, this thing doesn't do everything I want it to do. A remote 24 for the Mackie. So, the idea's been around a long time. Yeah, I want to be able to control everything, not on a bloody iPad. Don't tell me I'm computer illiterate. Probably no more than you do. But there you go. So I want something like that, where I can also control all the other stuff, but I want something that's robust like that can get thrown around. I don't want some flimsy poxy iPad that the batteries wear out every other day, or you've got to this, or you've got to, get out of here. I can do without all that. So if there's anything that I could do with as an installation, I'd love to have a unit like the EMX16, except that it sort of replicates this but small, and you can do a load of other things with it. You have to think about those things yourself. What do you mean by a load of other things? Well, think about the scenario. It's simple. So for me, the EMX16 probably is never going to happen. I might make one work because I own it, but it's not for me. I think it's a bit nandy-pandy, but I can fully see the situation of it being great when it's used on the road. I remember looking at the desk and it had got these three, we'll call them iPads, across the back. You could put these tablets across the back. I did check with Johnny about the bracket for the tablets. Oh yeah, they were made up. We were thinking of making some in January, February, March type of thing, which is a real pity. I do know on the back of the desk they've actually got the holes for where they screw in, so I ordered an AI one, just one of them. Well, that was ridiculous money. For what? It's a little bracket, right? It's 55 quid. 75 or $80 for a tuppenny bracket. Well, come on. You can do better than that. Presonus, you can do better than that. I've already invested in 3 screens, and by the way, the Samsung, because I'm never going back to Apple as long as I live. I can see the Samsung screens across the back, and I want the idea that I can put something different on each screen, I assume I can, and control it from the screen as well as having all the rest down here. That's the plan, and I think that's a great idea. It's some of the things that was really sorely lacking on the version of the O2R96 type of stuff that I had. Real pity. So remember, this hasn't been a sort of review looking at the hardware, you know, full on and all the rest of that. That's not the objective of making a video like this. The objective for me of making a video like this is I'm a guy that's been doing this sort of stuff for a long time, and I flipped across to Presonus and I wanted to talk about some of the different things and problems and the gear itself, of course, that I liked or disliked, or did it work for me or didn't it work for me, was this a good investment or wasn't that, you know. I can say that on the whole I'm quite happy where I am with Presonus now. I wasn't happy before. It wasn't a good place when it didn't work. You've got that Motu thing as well. I needed a solution for the backup. Like I said, to me that was a major problem. Presonus, well, to be honest, didn't have an answer. Nothing. I couldn't find any answer whatsoever of how to hook that up to Presonus equipment other than buying third-party equipment from Motu. Thankfully, Motu, the LP32, which is in a separate review, so watch for that, that actually worked. I couldn't believe it. I plugged it in, I spent 10 minutes setting it up, and it worked. And that cost about £600. That's about $800 or something like that. The thing about it, when you take the lid off that thing and you look what's inside, you'd be shocked at how little's inside it. And I remember in that video when I was doing part of the review saying, oh, you get nothing for your money. But in reality you get a lot for your money because of a lot of software, firmware, and I won't go into depths here, but the LP32 can be recommended along with the Presonus gear. Now, if you'd asked me, as I said, a month or two ago, I had tried to fit it sideways. Now, I'm happy with it. And lastly, if you don't actually do that with manuals for Presonus, yeah, print them all out. You're never going to go anywhere. I thought that was pretty much essential. That's one of the things I'd recommend. Well, that's been a quick run through of the things that I've got, and I've talked about some of the problems I had, and hopefully they'll make you think about Presonus in maybe a different way than you might have. You know, if you just look at the glossy sort of presentations, they don't do anything. But I'm a real user, so, you know, my views must count. I'm not an idiot, am I? Don't answer that. But the point is, there it is. How would I rate the gear today? I'd give it a 10 out of 10 now. But a month ago, I'd give it about a 3 out of 10. Oh, it's a nightmare. All over a little USB, basically. And there's a learning curve as well, which might knock it back to 9 out of 10. If you're somebody like me, I'm getting older, but I've had a lot of practice. If you're somebody that buys this equipment and has never ever used it before, you can have fun. That'll be like when I had the 02R96, when everything changed, and the patching and all the rest of it. It was a nightmare. Had I been fresh at it and bought all this gear, I'd probably still be doing it now. The good news is it's all done, it's all great, seems to work nice. I'm selling the old bits off, and that should take me forward a good way further. I hope Presonus just solved the few little bits and pieces that I've got going on. Yeah, and I hope they bring out a lot more innovative equipment, like they are doing. But I'd love to have that thing for the studio, for the guy himself, rather than some poxy iPad. You're out your head. Anyway, that's it. That's the run through of what I've been through, where I've been going, what I've done. Oh, there's always one last thing. Make sure you've got a really, really powerful PC. I have a really powerful PC with, I think it's got 32 gig of RAM and all the rest, and it's really powerful. The other thing I did on the PC was I got a network card that claims to be AVB compatible. Whether that matters. I aren't going to bore you with it. That's it for now. Till next time, thanks for coming and watching. It's been generally talking, but hopefully it's been useful talking. Yeah. Now get out of here.